what you have told today. Before sharing the poem, I just want to remind 12th June is a World Day Against Child Labor. So all children up to 14 years now have the right to education. So let us help them not to lose their childhood. So shall I go on to the poem? It's not a poem, actually I have just translated the meaning into English as I thought it was something interesting. Today's topic is what is in a name. Since suddenly I just read it and it was the title was what is in a name. So I thought I'll just tell that. I may forget my name myself. I mean, this I is for every one of you, including me. During school days, my friends called me by a nickname. So I was not called by my original name, as everybody knows. Then at home, since you were the eldest or the youngest or something, so they called you by a pet name. During college days, friends were careful by not calling your name in the public places. In the classroom, everyone was called only by roll number. And relatives addressed as so-and-so's daughter or whatever it is. Then after marriage, Mrs. So-and-so or a professor's wife or doctor's wife or so on. Then day-to-day life, milkman, vegetable vendor, everybody addressed as teacher amma, doctor amma or so-and-so amma. And when children were born, we were addressed as so-and-so's mother. So where is my name? Probably my mother's or grandmother's names also have disappeared like this. I may forget my name myself. I can leave it as what is in a name. But even if the name is not mentioned for the name's sake, I may forget my name itself. Is it not? Is it not interesting? Thank you.
President and ladies and gentlemen, a few years ago, I had the privilege of speaking to an audience at this forum. The topic was license to live. Some of you might have attended that talk. In that talk, I narrated in detail 9 serious accidents that have figured in my life so far, and showed that survival in most of them was very remote. It was only a miracle that I survived in some of those accidents. They came in all places, on land, underwater, in the air. Based on that experience, I developed my belief that when they come into this world, they bring with us a license to live for a certain number of years, months, days, hours, minutes and seconds. And so long as that license is valid, no act of man or act of nature can take us away from the dear earth. Some of those who are present, I think, endorse those views. Now the thing we most value in our life is life itself. The fact that we are alive, that is the thing which we most value. But next only to that, the thing that we value most is our name. So having talked about life in my first lecture, I thought I'd talk about name. This talk has 2 parts. In the first part, I'll talk about some names in my family. In the second part, I will refer to a study which throws some light on the naming process. I think I have mentioned earlier that every year on my birthday, millions of people in Kerala celebrate because I was born on Onam Day. 11th day after my birth, which is the day on which babies are named, happened to be Sri Krishna Jayanti. So my parents had no choice but to name me as Krishna. From my early adolescence, the name Padma used to fascinate me. Whenever that name was mentioned, a bell used to ring inside me. I was wondering why this was happening till 2 decades later, I married the one and only Padma in this world. Then I understood what this phenomenon has been. Now the real name of Padma is not Padma but Padmasani. There's an interesting story behind that name. It appears that when my mother-in-law was the family way after marriage, her maternal grandmother came to visit her. She was a woman with some psychic abilities. She told my mother-in-law, Raji, you are going to get a baby girl. Give her the name of Padmasani, which is the name of the goddess at Tirupallani on the Setu coast. Then she added, according to the family custom, baby is to be taken to Tirupati for tonsure, but make a departure. Take this baby to Tirupallani because she comes with the grace of goddess there. So have the tonsure at Tirupallani, not at Tirupati. And this was done. The lady went away, a few months passed. The baby was born and happened to be a girl. She was named Padmasani, and the rest is story. Now, just as my parents had no choice in naming me, you see that my in-laws had also no choice in naming my wife. The same trend continued with my children. When my daughter was born, we had no choice because the family custom demanded that if the firstborn is a girl, she must be named Lakshmi. If the firstborn is a boy, must be named Narayana. So we had no choice. She came with her name herself. If you had a minor license, we could add a prefix. We could call her Raja Lakshmi or Jaya Lakshmi. We thought plain Lakshmi is good enough. So we left it at that. Lakshmi has not forgiven us for this. She says that it is too plain and common a name. In fact, once she said that you go to any apartment complex and call out Lakshmi a bit loudly, at least one servant maid or sleeper woman will look back at you. So I answered her saying that you get into any Malabar restaurant and call Krishnan a bit loudly, at least one servant boy will be looking at you. These are what is there in the name, that's what I tell her. When my children were born, we were living at the BHL township at Tiruchi. I was chief of finance there. And my neighbor was one Seshadri, he was a stores manager. The Seshadris had 2 sons, Ravi and Badri. Whenever they called out the name Ravi, it made no impression on me, but whenever they called out Badri, I thought it was a good name. 2 years after Lakshmi was born, we had the second child, and that happened to be a boy, and promptly named Badri. You would think that he was named Badri because I liked that name. But in fact was that a week before he was born, my parents returned from a pilgrimage to Badrinath. My father told me if the child happens to be a boy, name him Badri. So you would find that we had no choice in naming our children. My parents had no choice in naming me, my in-laws had no choice in naming her, and we parents had no choice. It makes a complete set. Incidentally, both our children have been very considerate to us. In fact, they have been considerate even before they were born. Even when they were in their mother's womb, they were considerate to us. They decided that we will be born on the same day so that the parents need not have 2 birthday celebrations. So both of them were born on March 18, saving us 1 day's expenses. So at this point, I would like to talk a little about my grandfather, my father's father. He was born in the year 1861, named Srinivasan, and he was the 4th child of a very, very wealthy landlord. You can call him a bit of zamindar. The boy was a bit shortish, fair complexion and intelligent. He was also very, very sensitive. When the boy grew to 16th year, he picked a quarrel with his parents and left home in a huff, never to return. He moved aimlessly, moving south, till he came to a village called Chatramane Velur in Perambulur Taluk, today Perambulur district. He spent a few hours there, but the Redyar agriculturists of that place took a liking for him. They told him, why are you going from place to place? Why don't you settle down here? he will look after you. He was moved by their goodwill and decided to settle down there. He did settle down there and spend the rest of his life there. The Reddyars had actually a hidden agenda in persuading him to stay. There was and there is Lakshmi Narayan temple there without an archak for some years. They found that this boy had a good grounding in religious and secular education. Having been the son of a wealthy landlord, he had been given a good grounding in both secular and religious education. They thought he could take the role of archak in that village, in the temple. They also found that he would even officiate in some of the ceremonies at home. But more than this, the school, they had no school in that village, and they found that this boy could teach 3 hours to their children. So they had a 3-in-1 in persuading him to stay. Gave him a house near the temple and met all his needs, and he spent a very happy 6 years there. The Reddyars had only one worry. He was overaged for marriage. Even when he came into the village, it was 16 years. He was 16 years old. The average age for marriage those days for boys was 12 and 13. So they told him, please go back to your village and get married to an Iyengar girl and come back. He said, I am not going to set foot in that village once again. After waiting for years, they decided to take on the responsibility themselves. A group of them went to Salem district, scouted around, and found a very suitable bride. Those days, the bridegroom's party had to pay the dowry, so they raised the money and paid a hefty dowry to the bride's people. And the marriage was celebrated, went off very well. There was only a small hitch. The age of the bridegroom was 22, the age of the bride was 2. So the 22-year-old bridegroom was marrying a 2-year-old bride. It caused some practical problems because the bride had to be kept in the lap of the bridegroom and the Reddyar women had to divert the attention of the bride to enable this bridegroom to tie the Mangal Sutra. Then the marriage life commenced. So the husband had to wash up and bathe and feed. Very, very nice marital life. Till a decade later, she could assume responsibility as a wife. 15 years after he came to this village, a group of people came from Salem district. They came from a village very close to my grandfather's village. When they were introduced to my grandfather, they were very happy because they had known his family. But they gave a shocking piece of news. They said, the year 1877, a few months after my grandfather had left that village, the notorious Dhatu year famine swept the land. Some of you might have heard about this 1877 famine. Dhatu was the Hindu year of that 1877. The famine itself, as well as the cholera and the plague which accompanied it, killed hundreds of people in every village. Sometimes whole villages were wiped out. In my grandfather's village, half the village died, and that included the entire family of my grandfather. Now, ladies and gentlemen, imagine if my grandfather had not picked a quarrel with his parents and left that village. There won't be a Krishna standing before you and talking to you. There is no great loss to you, I am sure, but it's a great loss to me. Not having been born in this world and not having had the honor to address such an august body as NKCK